Good evening, and welcome to the Games Tavern Happy Hour. I'm Mac. Oh, no.
Hello there,
Sorry.
I'm Rob.
Sorry about those technical difficulties, guys. This is only my second time running a stream, so my apologies. So tonight, we actually have a really cool topic I was super excited to be talking to you guys about. It's rolling into a new series with the Games Tavern Happy Hour that is going to be the Games Tavern Players series, the tips for players. And tonight we're going to be looking at tips for beginning players. So people who are just getting started or just want to get started, you're not sure where to get going. This is the episode for you. So if any of you out there don't play, I don't know how many people out there don't, but everyone should. And now's a great time to be getting into the hobby. But before we get into that, Rob, have you been doing any interesting hobbying going on lately since the last time we
So,
spoke?
boringly enough, I am still working on one-shot adventures. For those of you who missed it, we actually ran a one-shot adventure,
Right.
Star Wars. I am told everyone had fun. I don't
Fun
know
was had
about
by some.
myself. I don't know about myself, but everyone apparently had fun. So,
Yeah, that was a really good adventure. I was actually I was shocked by how sort of cohesive the rules worked
mhm.
when it wasn't. It's a completely different system from anything I've ever actually played, but it worked really well. And if anybody is curious about that, we did. It is since we streamed it here, you can actually go look at it one of the videos on demand for what we played on Thursday. Somewhere around here, I don't actually have Twitch open, so I can't see where it is.
Yeah,
But yeah, go check it out if you not
below
now,
us.
but when we're done here, go check that out. See how the game plays. Rob did a really good job in running it and seeing how we could actually basically introducing us all to the game. Personally, yeah, I've been doing a lot of planning for one shots myself too. Getting some more orcs painted. Uh, there's just so much green. It's bad.
Well, at least they're orcs and not snake mans.
Yeah, that is true. So, if any of you guys have been doing anything fun in the hobby, painting, playing, bought a new book, whatever works for you, let us know in the chat there, and we're going to go ahead and roll on into the first subtopic here. So everybody that wants to be playing these games, one of probably the biggest hurdles you can have is simply finding a game, finding some people to get together and roll dice with. Because I'm sure you'll agree with me on this one, Rob. But as soon as you actually have a group that'll show up on a regular time, that's like 90% of the battle right there. Rules don't matter. Nothing else matters besides making sure everyone actually shows up and is going to play the game.
Yep. I, the getting everybody in the same place at the same time, whatever your schedule is, and I need to be clear here, like everyone's like, oh, it has to be a weekly thing. It doesn't. I
Absolutely
have
not.
groups that run bi-weekly. I have a group that runs monthly. I have a game that runs, I guess irregularly is the best way to put it. Like whenever the six of us can agree to make time. We say, yep, we're gonna make time, you know, the third Thursday of next month. And everyone says, yep, we're making time third Thursday. And that's when we play.
Yeah. Like I was one of the best role playing groups I was with. We did manage to schedule in a every week, but a lot of times we couldn't get everybody to work out. But it was just a matter of getting everyone to say, hey, this week we're gonna have to scrub it for a million different reasons. We're all adults, and this was up in northern New Jersey where it gets a lot more snow than down here in Virginia. So it's like, hey, it's a snow day. We're simply not gonna be able to get there. But when we had whatever the timetable is we wanted to carve out, being able to say, hey, plan it ahead, guys. Put these on your schedule. Show up. We've all committed to this. Uh, yes, it does take a little bit of commitment to do this. You do have to be a little responsible there, but that's the price of fun, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it helps you grow as a person to make those commitments and to be consistent and to be relied on by your friends to be consistent. It changes who you are.
Yeah. This isn't just going to the down to the pub for drinks or playing video games where you can log on in 5 minutes. There's a lot of work that the GM has to put in, the dungeon master, the judge, the narrator, whatever your system's term of choice is for the guy on the far side of the screen. And if he knows or she knows how many people are going to be showing up, and knows roughly the timeline between each time you guys meet, that takes a lot of burden off of them. And if everyone else picks up the slack and makes sure that we can get the team together, it makes it so that they can focus on giving you the best adventure. But that ties nicely into my three ways that I've recommended doing this. The ways that I've talked to other people about how to get into it. Uh, and I'm sure you might have some other ones there, Rob. But we'll go down this list and talk about them as they come up. By far, I think the best way to do this is to get looped in by a friend, a big brother, a big sister, your father, your mother, your aunt, someone that's in your family, someone that you trust, someone that's a friend, someone that you know already that plays. And either jump into a game that they're already playing or get them to run a game for you and a bunch of other new players. That's probably the easiest way to get in, the most straightforward way. I think one of the most common ways, if I had to take a guess there.
Yeah,
For
I think especially for the older generations of gamers, getting press ganged into a game is probably the way they got into it.
it just seems the most kind of organic way to do it. Uh, well, I've spent a lot of time in the back comic book shops trying to find a game,
Yep.
or hanging out with that as my cat decides to crush my comic book bag. Um, there's whenever you do a group where you don't actually know the players, you don't know who you're getting in with, you don't know them outside of the game, you do have some kind of issues. There's a risk of things just not meshing right. That's not saying
Yeah.
anybody's wrong there. Not saying anybody's bad. It's just personality sometimes can not mesh as much as you'd really like.
I just want to jump in and answer Josh's question pretty
Yeah,
directly. So I will tell you that I still play with the group of guys that I played with in high school occasionally. Not enough can be said about the fact that we played a game last year. We hadn't seen each other in over a year at that point, and we just fell right back into the same roles because we're different people, but when we play together, we're the same people. We're not 17 again, obviously, but that dynamic, that interaction, that easiness that comes with a very long familiar group is still there.
yeah.
Um,
If you have people that you trust that you know that you can role play with, you can start reading each other's cues, which is one of the big reasons why with the Whiskey Magic and Destruction crew, as we started getting the project up and running, we really tried to focus on interacting with each other a few times before the camera got on, because it's not just because we wanted to make the best show we could. It was also because it does take a lot of getting used to get your sea legs and get everybody banging on all four cylinders there to get that working. Uh,
yep.
that said, I have done, and it looks like Josh over there has also done it. The Adventurers League in D&D, and I believe it's the Pathfinder Society or the Starfinder Society for Pathfinder Starfinder. These are very good ways to get involved. The GM, the Star Master, Dungeon Master, whatever the term, I don't remember what it is for Starfinder, but whatever. The game master that's running the game is generally someone they're experienced. They know what they're doing, and they can work with a lot of different, a wide range of personalities, get everybody cohesive and working together on the table.
Yeah.
That is, yeah,
Your friendly local gaming store is going to be an opportunity if you're willing to go and you're willing to put in the time and the energy to get to know whoever's running games there, and then talk to them about building characters and then getting involved in the process, and then eventually you'll get invited to a game. I can pretty much guarantee that.
yeah, and a lot of places have this in. It falls in the category of organized play. Josh is just on point here. Let's give him a third camera and get him on here. But yeah, organized play. A lot of stores that sell Dungeon Dragons, Pathfinder, Warhammer's role playing game. A lot of stores that sell this have dedicated RPG nights. So while they might not be running official Starfinder, Pathfinder adventures, any of those, they at least have some dedicated nights to doing that. So they might not have the formal organized campaign play, but there's going to be a game of a group of guys at the back playing games, and you can probably find some time there.
So
Yeah,
I, I hesitate to call this one of my favorite ways, but I think we need to talk about it because it's
sure.
so prevalent right now and such an important skill set. I have found two groups over the internet, you know, through a forum and through Roll20's finding looking for group function. Um, these are harder, and
Yes.
I do not mean that to be discouraging. I mean, that finding a group that is going to be able to stick to a schedule and play as a dedicated group is difficult. And to get to those groups, you often have to go through a rough group.
Absolutely. This should, and this is a thing that we're trying to do right now, actually, on our Games Tavern Discord server, where we're trying to cultivate that atmosphere, where we can have these kinds of things going. Basically, it'd be the digital version of the bulletin board that we're not allowed to go out and hang out at right now.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
all of this, the friction and stuff that we're talking about, that's not good or bad. That's not someone's wrong or right. This is a lot more engaging than if you go and play World of Warcraft with somebody or play a video game with someone where there's very clear limitations between, oh, this is the character and this is me, and I don't actually have to interact with you out of game. So you do have a lot more chances of people rubbing up against each other in kind of the wrong way. My roleplay style doesn't quite match up with what you're hoping for, and it can be frustrating. As a new player, though, it is a worthwhile skill to know. Just roll on with it. If this group isn't working for you, you can find a new group. Right now, we're in sort of a renaissance of being able to play online,
yep.
uh, and everyone's figuring it out. And that's going to be a future episode where we actually go into it. Uh,
Yeah.
and do you see? I'll let you take that comment. That's a solid one.
Yeah. Shout out to Prim on this one because she's 100% correct about that. It is like online dating, and I need to be clear: when you're in a long-term established roleplay group, you are in a relationship with everybody in that group.
Absolutely.
It is not a casual thing. The gameplay 100% can be casual, but the commitment you make to each other and the amount of work you put into keeping the group going, that is a relationship. It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It can be daunting.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that when you have a group that you've been together with for a while, you start to notice quirks that the other person probably isn't even aware of. One of my favorite gamers that I worked and played with, I guess, up in New Jersey, had a very distinct way to role play when he was thinking. I highly doubt that was a thing that he consciously put any effort into. But it took probably 7, 8 years of us playing together before I realized, like, that's what's happening here. It's this bead of connections that goes along there. And they've pointed some stuff out to me when I was either LARPing or actually playing games, and people are like, "Oh, you did that same thing from the other." It's stuff you don't even recognize. So you do have a whole lot of very intimate relationships that you build with people that you play games with. That's probably one of the big reasons why I really like this kind of gaming as opposed to the MMORPG kind of stuff, because you don't build quite the same connections there. Those can be really good connections, just not quite on the same level that I'm looking for myself.
So I want to circle back and actually kick up I asked a question about first experiences. I think we touched on this briefly
Sure.
on the last episode. But I was dragged into it by Buddy. His older brother was a big D&D player. Rich, if you're watching this, that's super weird, but hey. Um, uh, Rich ran us through um, several of the old adventure books, and I would have to look at them to know which ones I'm actually talking about. Because we did not die until the Temple of Elemental Evil. And
Huh.
at which point I think we all died. All four of us died in the Temple of Elemental Evil. And that was the first end of a campaign was everybody died. Um,
It's a thing. It
it's a
happens.
thing. It happens. We didn't take it badly, but we took what Rich had taught us, and we started to really look at what we loved, and what we loved was Star Wars. We went out and found the old Star Wars RPG game, and then we basically subjected each other to torture for a while, trying to figure out how to run the game for each other. And I think at one point there was two groups with about 9 or 10 people playing an interconnected Star Wars campaign.
Nice.
So
Yeah, I think my first, oh, wrong button there. My first interaction with all of this was actually in, I want to say, middle school. Might have been freshman year. Uh, yeah, we're talking firmly 15, 16 years ago. Uh, and it was weird. I joined the club at the high school, and at the time there was still sort of, I guess, the remnants of like the Satanic Panic. So the
Yep.
school made it so you had to get a permission slip to join this particular club. You didn't have to get it to join the chess club or the improv acting club or whatever, but D&D club, ooh, you have to do that.
Yep.
So I went in there. I played for about a year there, and then discovered that the game that group didn't really quite mesh with me. High school was a weird time. I don't know if anybody else remembers that. Uh, so that group didn't quite work with me, but I ended up going to one of the local game stores. Did open up, and I played a bunch of games there. Started running stuff, and all of that. All given the time, I didn't go to high school in the '80s. Like it's not it's not quite that bad. But yeah, so I started playing more in the actual stores themselves than in one of like the small trailers that they had there. And it was still a good time, but it just the group didn't quite mesh with what I wanted. They had one game master running for 12 to 15 people.
Yep.
That's hard.
Yep. Yeah, I know. To to prospective game masters, please keep your first group small. It is so hard to get in the rhythm of managing people.
Yeah. So we
Um,
got a little bit more going on in the chat here. We have
yep.
Prim going on with, if you're playing with strangers, it makes session zero all the more important to establish tone, rules, and boundaries. It absolutely does. I don't want to touch too hard on that because session zero is something that we're actually going to be going into next week, and I believe Prim is actually going to be joining us for session zero,
Yep.
or joining me for session zero. You get the weekend off or the week off, so lucky. So we're going to be going into the actual importances and how to make that kind of thing click. But for anybody who's not indoctrinated on this, a session zero is before your players' characters meet in the tavern and go off to go slay dragons and kill goblins and loot bandits or whatever it is that you guys are going to go do. Session zero is an out of game conversation between everybody, and the game master is going to lay out what their expectations are, where they are expecting this to go. There might not be any plot spoilers, but it's like, hey guys, we are going to go. It's going to be a classic dungeon crawl. Expect
Hmm.
to spend lots of time underground with lanterns and torches fighting things in the dark. Okay. We're
Yep.
going to go on a sprawling Tolkien-esque adventure, going around and just to take a MacGuffin from one place to another. But we're going to go a bunch of different towns. Or this is going to be a fun urban brawl, a fun urban time doing a thing, and it's going to be very very social.
So I just want to circle back around because
Yeah.
Twitch Mitch did ask an important question. When the player character party dies, it is a breakup in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you've been playing those characters for a while, because as much as you have a rapport with the rest of your group, the people in the group, you get very comfortable and familiar with a character over the course of a campaign. So yeah, it's a little bit like a breakup. There's usually a little bit of heartache, definitely some sadness, but part of the fun of the game is you get to go back and try again.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get to create a new character and try for a new experience and have a different kind of fun. Hopefully with the same group of people, because I've had a couple of TPKs end groups, but it's very
Yeah.
rare. Um, and I think it's even rarer now because I think that the whole total party kill thing is both a I don't want to
Taboo.
say it's a required experience, but it's sort of a goal of many groups to get to that, to experience that, to understand what that, you know, the cathartic release of a TPK is. Um, and then of course you get to make new characters, which for a lot of people is the point of these games, and
Oh yeah.
much of the fun is derived from creating a character.
Yeah, I know you and I we can disagree all day about this, about how player death interacts with the game itself. But I believe both of us will fully agree that it's a part of the game. It happens. You need to be prepared for it, and you shouldn't let what happens, bad things that happen to your character, impact your view of the game. Don't let it ruin your fun. It is still a game. If you're not
Hmm.
having a good time with it, if you say have a GM that's out there to be like, yeah, I'm gonna punish and kill all my players, and the party's not cool with that, that's there's some disconnects there.
Yep,
But that's session zero.
that's what a session zero is for.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
session zero, very important.
Saturday, I believe I ran a Dungeon Crawl Classics one shot for just some of the cast members because I was itching to roll some dice, And at the very beginning, it was like, hey guys, go spin up random characters on this website here. And by the way, you are controlling 4 characters for a very specific reason. Lots of them will die. You're going to
Yep.
push peasants into a dungeon shaped meat grinder until something comes out the other side. That's how that's going to work. If they weren't cool with that at the beginning and they thought they were, they spent hours putting into like a standard Dungeons and Dragons character, and then I proceeded to gank them at the first door, that's an issue because they weren't expected. It's all about setting the right expectations there. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat down, Gares. I'm super excited about this. Does the person running it kill you off on purpose? Not
No.
really.
No, I want to be clear on this, Mac. If you are running a game and you are killing a character for no reason, you're not doing it right.
Well, the question wasn't no reason. The question was on purpose.
Right. I should be clear. If you're doing it maliciously, you're doing it wrong. There has to be a good reason, whether that is a role-playing reason or the player has asked you to kill the character, or the player is leaving the group for whatever reason and they want their character to leave with them. Those are reasons to kill a character. You should not be chasing a character death as a game master.
No, not at all. Like I'm a firm believer in if there's combat, the chances of somebody has to have the chance to die. Otherwise, combat is meaningless. Or you stole the DM's girlfriend. Yes, Josh. I don't know.
I mean, is that malicious or is that justified revenge?
Yeah.
That's a weird edge case, Josh. Let's not get into that one.
But so the way that I see it is without the risk of death, there's no tension in combat, for instance. And yes, that's a gross oversimplification. You can have tension where that doesn't technically result in death, but very old school. I have old school books somewhere on that counter back there. That kind of death is a part of the system, and that's how you learn not to go stepping on traps, stupid. Like that's the kind of way that I was brought up in all of that thing. Or that's how you know not to go, try to kill the dragon at level 3. Well, yeah, you're going to lose that fight and die horribly because that's how it happens.
Yeah.
But no, a GM should not go out and just be like, oh, you know what? It's been 3 sessions since I've killed a character. Well, time to kill a character. That's wrong.
There is, of course, an exception to that rule. There are certain games where character death is a required component. But everybody goes into those games, hopefully, with their eyes wide open to the idea that the character death is a function of the game.
Yes.
And it needs to occur for the game to move forward.
Yeah, that's. I've been trying to get into the new D&D culture, not just learning about the cultures of the game, but actually the gamer culture itself. So I'm going on this journey with you guys, and it seems like nowadays players are much more I don't want to say adverse to dying, but it's a much less common thing. People build really big characters and do really great role play with that, and telling that character's story from here until the end of the campaign is an important thing, and I love that. That's great. But some systems, older systems in particular, aren't like that, and so that's the dichotomy I'm still wrestling with. So we got a Vampire LARP. That's Vampire the Masquerade LARP. That's the same one.
What is it?
Yes.
Third Eye Mind Theater or whatever it is now.
Something I've played very little of that.
Oh, it's Mind's Eye Theater. I apologize to all the vampire LARPers. Yeah, Mind's Eye Theater.
I've seen some really cool stuff with that. And I was in New York City when they were doing it, and they actually, somebody that ran it was friends of a guy who owned a bar that had a nightclub underneath it. And it was fantastic because on weeknights when the nightclub wasn't actually open, he would be like, hey, can we use your nightclub as our vampire bar? And then go up into the actual club and interact with patrons in character and try and pretend that you're not actually a vampire and people won't know. And it was very weird, but it was also very cool. Some of the coolest role play I've seen, but not something I particularly ever want to do again. I don't stay up that late anymore.
Yeah, the Washington D.C. area actually hosts one of the largest vampire LARPs, and it is taken very, very seriously.
Mhm.
And they do have access to some great spaces, including a few churches in the area. Um, so maybe we'll go out and do that. I'm not a vampire LARPer myself,
I'd be willing
um,
to give it another go, but
but we
yeah,
could get ourselves in some serious trouble, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. I've been trying to get my my LARP itch scratched for a few years now. But
Yeah.
anyway, we've sidetracked hard. So before we carry on to the next thing, guys, we just covered how to find a game and ran off with a bunch of other random tangents. Hold on, here we go. How long is an average campaign, journey, or game? Does it depend on how the GM/DM decides to keep creating?
Yes, but
Yes, is
also
the answer is yes.
no.
Uh,
I mean, yes and
yeah.
no. So it's going to depend a lot on what game we're talking about in particular. Certain systems are built in a way that there's a point at which there's no longer a challenge for the characters,
Yep.
and that is the natural ending of a campaign that is enforced by the system. And then there are systems where, as long as the person running the game is feeling game to generating challenges, you can basically go ad infinitum. Um,
Yeah.
I
There's.
don't want to be I don't want to be like weird about this, but I've been playing a game of um, it's diplomacy with RPG rules, and we've been
Okay.
playing for about 12 years now.
Interesting.
Um, and this is everybody does stuff, and it generates. So we actually do things on actual month-to-month basis. So everyone has actions that you put in weekly, and then there's a monthly report on what happened. Um, and when people have characters in the same area, they can interact.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
So uh, there are a lot of very weird and very deep ways to play role-playing games that will suit directly to your interest or not your interest, depending on whether you can find the group that's doing it.
Yes. However, I believe that this question is probably looking at like how long is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign? A year, maybe two.
About, I would say, between 36 and 50 sessions is the average D&D campaign.
Okay. Yeah, I've if you're doing a pre-published adventure, like I did some of the Pathfinder adventures. Those take a year, year and a half, 2 years, depending on how fast the group moves and how you progress.
Yeah,
But you're looking at the year to 2 year timeline for that.
yeah.
For something homebrew, like what we're doing for Whiskey Magic Construction or for the Velkin Weave.
We should probably clarify, like
Yeah,
when I say 36 to 50 sessions, I'm really talking a year to year and a half.
yeah,
Everyone's going to go, but there's 52 weeks in a year. You're going to find that as adults who are making a commitment to each other to show up and play together, that you're going to say, I can't come this week. Can we push? Because real life is always going to take precedence over getting together to drink a little bit, to have a little bit of fun.
yeah.
Um, so you're going to miss probably a dozen sessions a year. I
I
mean,
just realized I did math wrong
realistically,
and didn't remember how many weeks were in a year.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Again, like the 36 to 50 is, to my mind, pretty average for D&D or D&D alike, like
yeah,
Pathfinder style campaign. And it is 1 year, 18 months, maybe 24 months, depending on, again, your group may meet every other week.
yeah. And here we go. Josh is hitting it into the into the cheap seats back there with the Adventure League modules are 2 to 8 hours for on average. Those are the ones where you're going to go to the store. You're going to have the Adventurers League Dungeon Master read out, basically run a pre-published adventure for you guys, and then play through that. Excuse me, in a single night. It's it's not a one shot because you can have persistent characters and things can matter across it. But the D&D hardcovers are like what I have hanging out back there, where it'll be like the Curse of Strahd, or it'll be a whole bunch of great things. Curse of Strahd, Dragon Heist, Tales from the Yawning Portal. One day I'm gonna be able to run that just because I love it. But there's some great stuff back there that Wizards of the Coast has already. Wizards of the Coast wrote up and basically built a campaign for you. Yeah, those can take a year. Those can go longer. They can go shorter, depending how fast, how quick, how much you guys do things, how slow you do things. If you go at tangents, so there's really no right answer on this, uh, other than to say roughly a year.
Yeah. I guess I should point out that if you're playing a campaign for a year, at the end of the year, you might just decide as a group to take a break from that campaign.
Yes.
You're not saying it's over. You're just saying, hey, we've had a great year, but let's try something else. Long-term groups where the fit is between players rather than the game that the players want to play, that is pretty common.
Yeah, that was that's very similar to what I my group was in New Jersey. Is anytime that we would go for 3 months or so with one game master running his plot, and they were almost always adventure paths because that's just or the pre-written stuff simply because that's what we wanted to run and we weren't all digging around the internet and know all this stuff. So it's like, yeah, save the time, pick a cool adventure path and run with it. And then when he sort of gets burned out or needs to get caught up, I would step in and I would run a different system. Uh, I for a while ran some Starfinder, and I really wish I could make that system work. There were some problems with it that I believe got patched out later, but I was running it like fresh alpha the presses released. Uh, but it's once we ran out of that, we would go about 4 or 5 sessions with that because it was the alternative campaign. My friend would the standard game master would get okay, he's good to go again. He gets in and gives us another 3 to 4 months of doing the main campaign, and then we'd step in and play some Dungeon Crawl Classics, or we'd
Yeah,
step in and play Star Wars or any of these other games that people have.
you make a good point. There's a lot of prep work involved in running a campaign, and sometimes whoever's running the game is going to go, I don't have anything. Somebody wants to run something else for a couple weeks. That would be great, so I can catch up on all of whatever has been eating up my time to allow me to get more stuff together to run.
Yeah. Plus, it just lets
Um,
them play the game.
right, yeah, getting to play the game is a great release. Nobody wants to be the quote unquote forever GM, um, who always runs the game and never gets to actually play a character because um, we talked about this before. Most groups rely on a rapport between two players, the one of the a game master and a player who is super into whatever the game master is producing lore wise or character wise, and they're really digging in deep to it, and that energy feeds on itself and the group runs on that dynamic.
Yeah.
Sometimes the person who's producing the material wants to take a break, um, or has to take a break. It's
People get burnt out. It happens.
Yeah.
And real life happens. We have a question from Kick Up High. So if one is starting out and you meet a group through a friend or a game store, are you able to just pop in with a new character? That depends. Rules wise, yes. You can, especially for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, you can write up a character for any level. I believe the way you do that is you write up a level 1 character and then you level them up. So there's a little bit more work involved. But you can do that. It can always be, hey, we're in this town and we met up with the sellsword over here, or there's a wandering wizard, or the druid is for some reason hanging out in the park and decides to want to hang out with us for a few hours. You can do that. There's nothing bad about that at all. It's a great way to get your feet wet on there. The one concern I do have with that, if you're jumping in with with an experienced campaign, like we're talking level 5, level 6, and you have no experience, you're a brand new player, is you will get lost in the rules, or you run the risk of getting lost in the rules and not enjoying the system, the game for what it is. Which is why when I run games, I try to run campaigns. I try to start at level 1 or level 2, so that as your character learns new things, gets better, you learn how to play the character.
so
Yeah.
5th edition D&D is really good because you don't actually get all of your abilities until 3rd level. So you have a lot of leeway in those level 1, level 2 characters to learn how to interact with the larger mechanics of D&D before you have to start figuring out how do I use the specialized mechanics of
Yep.
this class.
Yeah, when I first started playing Adger and Firebeard, I have never played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and I realized I was doing the spells wrong for about 6 months. Like that's just that was the thing that happened. No one has to call me out on that one. So I had no idea what I was doing. But if I had just I had level 1, 2, and 3 to figure out. Oh, yeah, no, I'm actually cutting myself off really hard here. I'm not. I don't have enough spells prepared. I'm not casting enough spells. Period. Having a having jumping in at level 4, level 5. I don't think I would have caught that mistake, and I probably would have lost the character in session 1 or 2, just because the game is that much more deadly at that point.
Yeah. I think we should take a 5-minute break here so that we can transition ourselves to get ready to talk about our next subject.
Yeah, definitely. And
Okay.
we'll. Well, is there anything else we want to do here? No, it's Josh curating from the. We're gonna have to get some time to get you on the show, Josh, because you're doing our jobs for us.
Yeah, Josh, get in my seat. Not literally my seat, but this seat.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break here, guys, and we will be back. Hey everybody, welcome back. Sorry about that. We just had to go consult some notes real fast and stretch our legs.
No, Mac and I wanted to have a private conversation, and we didn't invite you.
That's true, but you didn't have to tell them. Anyway, we got a couple new people coming in. Insidious Risk, hey to you too. All right. So we've talked about how to find your game, kind of. If you don't have a group, you don't have someone who's going to be running it for you, someone that you trust, someone that's going to be dragging you along.
So
We there, sorry.
let me jump in here real quick and say that we've given you some basic instructions. If you want more detailed instructions, please join us on Discord.
Absolutely. There is one method that I wrote it down in the notes, and I was kind of hoping to actually touch on because this is something of a rite of passage for a lot of nerds. Is everybody chipping in on the Dungeon Master's Guide, the Monster Manual, the Starter Box, and being like, "Hey, Billy, guess what you get to do today? Read all this and make it fun." That's a thing that can happen. But the starter box is actually a great way to get going with that for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
We're not sponsored. We're just a fan. Yes, and the Lost Mines of Phandelver is currently free on Wizards of the Coast, or from Wizards of the Coast. That's a fantastic adventure. Like I've thumbed through it. I kind of want to run it or be
If you
run
don't
through it.
believe Mac, you're welcome to look on any platform for D&D. There are 11 billion Lost Mines of Phandelver games, and that's because that starter module is really that good.
It gives you everything you want about the game. There's a little bit of social, a little bit of fighting, a little bit of role play. It has everything. It teaches you how the game works. It's great. Speaking of learning how the game works, flawless segues. That's what you come here for. We have how to learn the rules. This is not a. This is not how to play Dungeons and Dragons. This is not how to play a game of your choice because there's a lot of ways to play these games. A lot of games out there. But learning rules is kind of a skill set, which you can learn yourself, fair viewer. The way I approach it is basically you prioritize what you need to do, the most important thing for you to know about the mechanics of the game, where if I can't do this right, things are going to bog down and everyone at the table is going to hate me forever. For me, that no one will do that. Everyone was new at one point. For me, the order of priority there are the core combat rules. Following, so how to move in combat, how to roll for initiative, how to do an attack or spell. Then how do the rules for your class, how your character interacts with the world. Then you can stop there if you've got 5 minutes to learn the game. Go stare at those things, figure that out.
In fact, GM Reed actually did that for our Star Wars one shot because he spent most of his day setting up the overlay for the game, and then he had about 15 minutes to look at the rules. So he just said, what are the absolute basics? What do I need to know to function? And I said, here's the deal. I know that this is unfamiliar terrain, so I, as the GM, made the decision. I'm just going to tell everybody what they should be looking at dice-wise, what they should be looking at action-wise.
Yep.
That is a friendlier way of running a game for people who aren't familiar with it, and it requires a GM who is both experienced and understands the system well enough to make those calls.
Absolutely. If you have a forgiving GM, and I don't mean like, oh, you've done horrible things to me, I forgive you, but one that's loose with the rules, and will be like, hey, you roll this, roll that, maybe try to do this thing, or if you look at your character sheet and do this and that and the other thing, a great GM will help to shepherd in new players into the hobby because being a GM is great. I love doing it myself.
Accidental GM tips here. 100%. If a player asks if they can do something, the answer should be yes, and it is your job to figure out how to get from A to B.
Oh.
Within reason.
Yeah, it's like, I want to run up this 50-foot wall. I mean, roll for it, I guess. But...
Are you a rogue who has, spider climb? Because then, yes, 100%. If not, that's going to be really tough.
Anyway, we've run off here again. So you've learned the core combat rules. You've learned the rules for your class, and we'll go into this in a little bit more depth in a second. If you have some extra time, learn the atmosphere rules. So how the economy, religion, resting, healing, that kind of stuff. How is that going to work for you? And then ones, miscellaneous rules.
Right. Those miscellaneous rules and those atmosphere rules may not seem important, but they can really drive character development, and that's why they're very important.
those, and this isn't atmosphere rules. Know the politics of Waterdeep. No, you don't need that at all. You need to know the god you worship. If your character worships a god, know their god. Maybe their opposed deity. A lot of systems have an opposed deity system. Know how resting works. If you take a nap, what's going to happen, and know how much a gold piece is worth.
And
That's it.
yeah, that's the bare bone basics. Um, have some idea of why characters in the setting might have a faith rather than just being atheists, which, by the way, in some settings is totally a thing. There are characters who are deliberately atheists despite the fact that there are gods who can come down and interact with them.
Yeah, that's always been like I get some people do that, and I don't play up religion in any of the games I've played in. Just
Oh,
that's not
it's
something I
in
want to do.
Planescape. There are 100% atheists in
Hmm.
Planescape.
I've never understood that. It's like, hey, there's a tangible proof of your god. Nah, I don't believe in
Well,
it.
they
What?
just the
Yeah,
assertion is that it's not their god.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is the kind of minutia that we should not be delving into right now.
We'll save it for a
But
later episode.
yeah, um, with a new character, those what is the currency? What are the religions of the area? What are the religions of my race?
Hmm.
Because a lot of games have specific um, sets of pantheons for specific groups of uh,
Yeah,
races or peoples or cultures. Depending on how the game is written, the better ones tend to have more. Um, but more is not always better. I need to be clear about that. There's a limit to how much you want in your kitchen sink.
yeah. There's you can very easily overdo it if you are allowed to just pick any god out of any multiverse. You have some problems when you run into that as a GM. But we've gone over the core things there. Why is now we're going to dig into a little bit why we hammered out those points. The core combat rules, simply put, if you don't know those, combat is the most mechanically heavy part of a game where rolls need to be happening quickly and they need to be happening accurately.
If I may break in, Mac
Yeah.
and I talked about this in a previous episode. There are games that are not as combat focused. That combat is actually not the most mechanically intensive part of the game. But the reason that we make the generalization is because I would say 9 out of 10 games that we're ever going to talk about, combat rules are the bulk of the rule set. And that's
Yes.
because conflict is the focus of arbitration in gaming.
Plus, because combat is such an abstraction from what you're doing around the table, there needs to be a lot of rules there to make that work. Plus, there needs to be enough rules. You need to have a rapidness of what you're doing. If every time it becomes your turn, you stop and be like, all right, what are my options here? What can I do? What weapons am I carrying? How can I interact with the world? You're going to slow down the pace of an already pretty tedious section, or not tedious, but heavy section even more.
Time intensive.
There we go. So if you don't have a firm or at least a tenuous grasp of the combat rule system, brush up on that. Learn those rules first, because that will be where you're going to be getting the most bang for your buck. Role play, how to interact with somebody, that's not hard. Because like, hey, I go over there and I want to talk to the bard over there. Okay, well you go over there. The GM will prompt you, give me a charisma check, give me a persuasion roll, give me a this, that, the other thing. All right, cool. You can work with that. But the GM's not going to fight himself in combat. He's not going to be like, hey, attack me with your broadsword. No, no, attack me with your other sword. All right, do a double-handed attack. He's just going to be, I got a million things I got to work on. You
The
got to play your character.
the GM will, if they're paying attention, will note when you're making a boneheaded play, and they'll ask you, usually very directly, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
The answer is always yes. That is what I want to do.
Right? Yeah. Live your consequences.
Yeah.
The answer is not yes or no in that situation, or I shouldn't say it's always yes or always no. It really depends on what you think is appropriate. If your character would do what the GM is
Mhm.
asking you, like, are you really sure you want to do that? Make sure you explain it to everybody. This is 100% what my character would do. I'm telling you this is what the character would do, even though I've just been informed this is a bonehead play. This is what he's going to do because it's what he would do.
Yeah. On that note, you've learned the rules for basic combat. You know how to swing a sword, block with a shield, doff armor, and stab a goblin.
Doffing armor? Why would you need to know how to take off armor? That rarely happens in combat.
I don't know what kind of fights you're getting into, but it's like when you're at the Jersey Shore and you see a dude, you just like, no, take your shirt off and you flex at him.
More commonly, you're trying to don your armor during combat. But yeah, okay, I got it.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what kind of fights you get in. Armor gets in the way. Come on. Anyway, so you've learned the rules for basic combat. Next thing you need to learn are the rules for your class. Now, this is not the most popular decision ever, or a piece of advice ever, but when I do kind of encourage new players to try and pick up a more martial class. Pick
Oh
up
no,
that's
we're
my personal
we're in
opinion on that.
complete agreement here. So, is a brand new player to a system, you want to choose. Hopefully, your GM is going to point you towards, but you should choose and should want to choose a class that has quote unquote less options. That is, of course, crap.
Yeah,
Because it's not true at all. But what it does have is less
special rules.
specialized rules. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really what it is.
So if you've learned the core combat system, pick a class that is going to focus on that heavily. So fighter for Dungeons and Dragons, fighter is a great choice for a first player for a first character because you just need to learn how to do combat and then how to do combat slightly better. That's how that works. Versus if you learn the combat rules and then you decide, oh, I'm going to play a wizard. There's a lot of stuff in the wizard. Doing wizards is homework. Uh, I love it. I think it's a great class to play. I wouldn't really recommend it as a first class though. Uh,
And some of
yeah.
this is also going to be like whatever the group dynamic is, because
Oh
again,
yeah.
groups have self assorted roles, and um, WMD is interesting because a couple of us are playing against our normal roles in terms of what we play in a party group, and it's created an interesting and fun dynamic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, knowing and feeling comfortable subverting your normal group role like that, especially if you have two people doing it at the same time, is a you have to be comfortable with each other sort of thing.
Yeah. The and then this does kind of get into character creation, which is something we're going to talk about in the session 0 episode. But it is everybody knows how they would act in a you show up in you get to be a Dungeons and Dragons character, you get to be a sword and sorcery character. What are you going to be? Off the top of your head, Rob, what are you?
Fighter.
Fighter. There we go. Wizard. Boom. Like that. That's what I want to do. All right. Well, that's how I want to interact. Well, I want to be Merlin. I want to be Gandalf. I want to walk around with a staff, a big beard, and yell at people who touch my books.
I want to be the guy who gets hit in the face by the ogre. Not
Yeah.
because I want to get hit in the face by the ogre, but because I don't want anybody else to get hit in the face by the ogre.
So it's in situations like that, if it's like, hey, this is everybody's going to sort of gravitate towards their own choices. That is another way to pick how you play the games. And if you have a little, or what your first class is, and if you have a little bit more time, it is absolutely worth scratching that itch. But if it's like, hey, I went into my local store and I saw that there's a pickup game tomorrow, but play one of the less complicated classes. That's You're going to be doing yourself a lot of favors if you try and just get in, learn the rules, figure out how it goes. You can always make another character later.
Yep. For first timers who want a little bit extra, there's the ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for first timers who feel really comfortable with the skill system, there are rogues and bards. Um, and for first timers who really want to try out magic, really, you really want to do it, try sorcerer, please. It's very hard to make a mistake as a sorcerer,
Ew.
at least in terms of your spell
Sorcerers.
selections and your contributions to the groups.
I thought you were cool.
I mean, again, um, you know, it is what it is. I happen to agree with you that wizard is I guess
Correct choice.
the the graduate degree of D&D. To play a wizard well is takes a lot more study of the rules.
I don't like sorcerers. They're weird. It's like, ugh, this is meh.
Yeah, no,
But
the
I
the
have a
whole
lot of
idea that
prejudice.
the whole idea that somebody can skip the studying part and simply knows meta magic because they are, the great grandson of a dragon. It is what it is. I agree with you that it is a little bit weird, but in terms of stepping into the broader magic using classes, bard, sorcerer, ranger
Yeah,
are great choices.
absolutely.
Paladin. Sorry, because I don't play paladins all that often.
Paladin's a
Um,
fun class.
it is D&D 5e paladins are actually really really excellent. I am I play paladins the way that Gary Gygax envisioned playing paladins, and it really scares some people.
Yeah, th- I wish kind of wish that the fifth edition, like I like the options that they give. I just wish that they didn't call the class paladin anymore. But
Well, I mean,
that's
it's holy champion. That's what it is.
and I'd be okay with that
Yeah.
if that was what the class description was. But now it's just paladin is for everything. It's like that's not okay. But again, we're going off on the wrong course here because when I play paladin, yeah, I'm playing the lawful good champion of the week kind of thing. That's what a
Oh no,
paladin is.
I'm playing what Gary Gygax envisioned, which is basically a character from a Quentin Tarantino film who's literally killing everybody between him and justice.
I mean, you can do that through lawful good if you really want to. But anyway,
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah,
yeah,
no.
this is the
I'm not
family
saying the
show.
character isn't lawful good. I'm just saying it's super violent compared to what most people want out of
Oh
a
yeah, yeah,
paladin.
no, it's no, it's not oh, I'm going to solve all my problems with talking. You can absolutely solve problems with the sword. That's
Right.
that's valuable. But so we've learned the core combat rules, right? We've learned the rules for how my character overall, so class and race, is going to interact with the world. Now I need to learn a little bit about this world. I need to know if when that guy over there says he'll pay me 5 gold to go 5,000 miles and deliver some cheese, is that a worthwhile trip? Is that a lot of money? Is that no money? Is five if he offers me 5,000 gold to go kill 3 goblins? Is is that a lot of money? Is that no money? I don't know. So having a little bit of understanding of the economy, and I don't mean to understand more about the economy than you understand our current economy, but know how much it costs to exist in this world. How much does a night at the inn cost? How much does a dinner cost? How much is a flagon of mead? Know what it is, the general touchstones. Like you know how much a gallon of gas costs in this world. You know how much $7 to $10 will get you a sandwich at the local Subway or sandwich dispensary. Uh, so you would know those kinds of things. Try and figure out a couple touchstones of that caliber for your characters, so that you can be like, oh, he's offering me 500 sandwiches worth of payment to do this job. I'll do
So
that.
one of the things that I did when I was starting out, and I'm not sure that this is the best methodology, and this comes back to like I wish I had known this when I was first starting out, is that I would look over like what was available in terms of equipment, and
Mm-hmm.
I would set an equipment goal, like something I obviously couldn't get at the character generation, but down the line I really wanted.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way to go about that. What were some of the equipments that you would try to sort of have as like your stretch, eye in the sky? I'm getting that.
So, 25 years ago, playing a half elven fighter rogue, I believe, I decided that one of the things I really wanted was the chainmail of elvenkind. And of course, there's no way to get that at character generation.
No, I mean
Um,
there is. It's bring your GM a bottle of scotch.
right,
You
or be
can
sleeping
bribe the
with your
GM.
GM.
Yeah,
Right, yeah, one or the other. But for most characters, that's a long-term goal, somewhere
absolutely.
around. Uh, the old D&D system was weird, but let's say somewhere around 6 levels in,
Yeah,
you might be able to get it.
absolutely. And
So,
for the people at home that aren't quite following along, what is the armor of Elvenkind?
so Armor of Elvenkind is chainmail, except it is special chainmail made by special Elven Forge masters. Um, Please ignore my cynicism. This comes from familiarity breeds contempt, I guess. Um, it's mithril chainmail. It is designed. I mean, if you've read Tolkien,
Yeah,
you know what I'm pointing at. It is essentially the armor that they gave to,
Frodo.
yeah, well, originally to Bilbo, but then to Frodo. That is extra light and extra strong, basically steel. Um, D&D steel. Although D&D now has steel, and then it has mithril, which is high carbon steel, I guess.
Yeah. Stop thinking about it. No, don't
Yep,
look too hard
not
into it.
important.
Yep.
Definitely not important. Yeah, mithril is better than steel. That is what is
Yeah.
important.
So the armor of Elvenkind is a huge deal to any of us old nerd D&D nerds. because it's exactly that. It's the armor that Frodo wears in the mines. It's the armor that Bilbo wears when he's in, well, all of Bilbo's adventures. The Hobbit was an
And
awful
more
movie.
importantly, for a fighter rogue, it's the armor that you get less stealth penalty in.
Yes. So there's a bunch of great atmosphere and roleplay and game mechanic reasons that you would want this piece. So having that as a sort of a character career goal makes a lot of sense.
Right.
For me, anytime I usually set my eye on some kind of high level magic item. Uh, I don't normally have I don't like collecting magic items, but that's a worthwhile kind of thing where it's like, oh, at some point I want to be able to afford a magic item that has better use than the wand of scowls. Like, yeah, what?
I don't know, man. Making someone scowl on command is pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, but I can just do that by talking to them in roleplay. What do you want?
I guess. Um, yeah, I guess getting back to like the things I wish I knew when I had first started playing out. And I really wish I had understood that um, there needs to be a separation between what I am capable of saying and doing, particularly with social interaction, and what my character is capable of saying and doing. And I think that is actually one of the hardest things to really get used to.
Yes. One of the sort of ways I've always broken into that was by when I first play a new system. If I'm unfamiliar with it entirely, or I'm trying to sort of get used to a new group, I kind of play my own, sort of my own analog in that universe. So I don't need to be trying to think about what my character would know or what my character would think, because their goals and motivations and everything sort of kind of line up with what I know, with how I think. So I can focus on the rules. I can focus on the things that I don't really know, and just be
Right.
like, oh, that's a thing. Uh, and very quickly I end up moving past that point and either evolving the character or making a new character, depending on how applicable that is. Or now cat in my lap, and it's great.
So yeah, no,
Yeah,
you're talking about a self XP, a self insert character, and
yeah.
I
Mary
think we should
Sue,
be
I think,
clear.
is the term for that, but
Right, yeah.
author
We should be
insert.
clear that there's nothing wrong with that,
No, not at all.
especially when you're first starting out. It is easier to judge your reactions than it is to judge the reactions to someone who is not you.
Yep.
Um, yeah, no, I think it's fair. Rob in The One Ring is Ranger of the North.
Yeah.
That's what Rob is in The One Ring. Um, I've since having played The One Ring a couple times, I've moved on to other more interesting and niche characters like the dwarven tobacco fiend, and
Just pipe
the
weed all day.
hobbit, the hobbit. Uh, I believe they're farmers. I can't remember exactly what they are. There's a specialized hobbit thing that they can they can produce better food.
Okay. Yeah.
Is their jam.
That's just hobbits.
Well, yeah, but also it's a specialization within the One Ring.
Yes.
Anyway,
So Josh has chimed in with a interesting point here. Not using meta knowledge. I know all the spells in the book. My character only knows 2 spells. Yeah, it's being able to pay attention to Halfling Rancher, being able to pay attention to uh, doing some self-limiting is useful. Uh, when I play for because everyone loves hearing when you talk about your own character. When I play Adger and Firebeard, he has studied academically about magic, so he might not know spells, but he'll probably have heard of most of them, or at least be cognizant of what the spells do. But being able, yes, managing out of character knowledge versus in character knowledge. Out of character, everybody knows that Xanathar is the inherited or purchased or whatever. It's a transitory title for the beholder that lives under Waterdeep and commits crimes.
mm-mm,
Uh,
manages the commission of crimes.
okay, fine, yeah, fine. He's a crime boss,
Thank you.
uh, but still a
And
crime.
a lover of goldfish.
Yes. However, your character shouldn't know that. Like some of them do, but you'd have to have a really good reason for your character to
Oh,
know that.
Josh, let's not go into like advanced Waterdeep lore, and that the fact that the current Xanathar is actually fighting the Zhentarim, it's not important.
No, he just Xanathar just does crimes. Like, done.
Well, and fights crimes, but
Shut up.
you know,
Get off my podcast.
done.
Wait, no. So there is a whole lot of stuff out there. One of my favorite things to do is, as a GM, I ask for a little bit of homework between session 0 and session 1. Hopefully, you can have it during session 0, but that's not always needed. But basically, give me a little bit of information about your character, some blurbs about that. Usually 3 bullet points that are no more than a simple sentence, and just who who you are, where you're from, what you were doing before you're adventuring, and why you're adventuring. If you really want to get squirrely with it, you can tell me your phobias, and I may or may not abuse those.
20 questions. Play 20 questions.
Yeah.
Even if your GM is not asking you to play 20 questions, play 20 questions so that you, when you finish playing 20 questions with your character, understand how your character would react in situations better than you did before that.
And one of the on the in character versus out of character knowledge, one of the things that I highly recommend people at my table do when they roll for, say, a perception check, or to disarm a trap or whatever, and they roll a natural 3 and they clearly don't succeed, don't be disappointed and start be like, well, I couldn't do it. It's like, no. You think you got it. Like, you're you're the man. You're the hot shit here. Of course you disarmed that trap. Yeah, you got this, man. The door is unlocked. Go for it. Lean into that kind of thing, because your character doesn't know the dice rolls. Your character just knows when they're in there and doing a thing, jiggling with the lock or whatever. They should think they wouldn't stop if they thought that it was bad.
There are exceptions to that.
Yes.
Like, your character can obviously make a mistake, picking a lock. If they break their pick off, I think they're going to figure out that they haven't picked the door successfully.
Yes.
The flip side of that is, like, you don't have to always go with that catastrophic failure. And in fact, in many occasions, especially if you come very close to actually succeeding, but don't quite, it's more fun if your character thinks they succeed. We had played with a group who had a rogue who failed every attempt to pick locks, but also had 16 strength and would just knock down doors.
That's fair.
Right. And it became a funny thing because he would fail to pick the lock, but he would think that he had picked the lock and he would just muscle through the door.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters I played, that was my example of this, was it was for an Iron Gods campaign in Pathfinder First Edition, which was a weird post-apocalyptic thing. So everything I'm about to say should make more sense. I played a brain in a jar robot. Big, like, dryer tube arms and legs and clamps and a big glass dome with a brain on the inside. And I did that because I wanted to paint that miniature. And I did, and it's beautiful, and I love it. But the thing was, it had horrible perception rolls, but for some reason everyone kept like, no, the robot's smart, put it at the front of the party. All right, robot, make sure this doorway is clear. I look at it, I roll perception. I roll on with my -4 perception or whatever I had. And it's like, the doorway is clear. You rolled a natural -3. You're great. It's like, all right, well, yep, hey guys, doorway is clear. After you. All the traps go off. Because, like, yeah, my character wouldn't know he's bad at seeing and wouldn't be like, look, that looks like what I got.
Yeah, no, there's flavors.
Yes.
And depending how you want to approach, like, if your character really does not do well in a roll, they're going to have something bad happen, like they break off a pick in a door. They're going to know they messed up. That's embarrassing. That's a different role-playing opportunity for the character.
Yeah, and that comes to your GM to see how they want to role-play with failure. And if they want to be like, all right, well, you rolled a critical failure, which is not a thing in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition.
It's an optional rule in 5th edition.
Yeah, and I really like those, but that's whatever. That's not time for. We'll have a debate episode down there at some point. But there are, so if you roll a natural 1 while trying to pick the lock, well, you've clearly fumbled. Like, the lock, you jam it, your hair pick is stuck, it got caught in the bubble gum, like, or whatever. Who cares? something very obvious has happened, and then you have a gradient of failure from there to I failed, but I think I succeeded. So there is a gray scale that you can play with there, and some really great GMs will allow you to play with those different things. I'm a horrible GM, and I'm just like, no, you think you did great, you got this, unless you know, hardcore crit fail.
Yeah.
So, how about any other miscellaneous rules that you think that might be worthwhile learning if you have the time?
For game systems that have a special set of rules, and they tend to be very clear about this. The most cut and dry example is Gumshoe. You're going to want to spend some time
Yes.
learning that specific set of rules. In the case of Gumshoe, it's your investigative skills and how they function, and what sort of access they should give you as the player, and also your character. In terms of, so like, if you have the investigative skill architecture, your character knows architecture.
Yeah.
They have a collegiate level education in architecture. They would know what a minaret is. They know what a column is. They know what an ionic column looks like. They know what a dionic column looks like.
Doric.
Yeah, Doric column looks like. And what the hell is the third one? The
Corinthian.
Roman. Yeah, the Corinthian. Um, so they understand these things. They know what a balustrade is. Those are all things your character knows without having to make a single roll. And if the architecture is a clue, if you're tracking down a treasure and something about the architecture is part of the clue, your character automatically recognizes that.
Yeah.
So understanding that privilege and those rights and how those interact with the game world is very important. And they're not the normal rules. Like, the normal rules in the game are covering the stuff that we talked about: combat, driving cars, running away from bad guys, running towards bad guys, punching bad guys in the face.
Yep.
All those are your normal rules. And then you have your separate set of investigative skills.
Yeah, so the Gumshoe is an interesting system for all that. We're going to have to do a show on that whole system because it's a fantastic discussion there. But Josh here has also mentioned calibrating with your GM and the other players about how much PvP is acceptable, if any. We'll dig into that a little bit more probably in a later episode. But
I
yes,
think
that
I
is a
think
thing
the
that needs to be
dichotomy
paid
between,
attention.
yeah, PvP and character versus character interaction is important,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of player comfort issue there.
Generally, at my tables, when I say my table, I mean I'm the guy behind the screen.
Hmm.
You're not going to be making rolls against each other. I don't
Right.
care. It's not happening. You're here to tell a story together and make this go. If it turns into the rogue and the fighter get into a slap fight with each other, no, we're not moving forward. We're not doing it. It does nothing productive for the story, in my opinion.
Right.
Having conflict where they disagree, uh, or where the rogue might pickpocket something, but you really got to play that very, very carefully if you're going to go that way. And I generally don't open it up unless I know the groups and I know the rogues, and we've had this conversation lots and lots of times. Yeah, exactly. Josh says a rogue likes to steal stuff, but it might not be appropriate to steal from other PCs.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
don't do that.
100%. Well, don't do that unless it becomes plot important. Is really the key there.
Yes. Yeah, all of the rules that we have lots of caveats that are like unless it you need to do that.
Hmm.
But don't be out there. It's like, well, he got more money than me on this, or I don't feel like he deserves that much money. I'm just going to take some of his money just because
Uh,
I want more money. Don't do that.
clo- Closing thing that I wish I knew when I was starting out. I'm gonna be honest with you. I wish I knew it was fine to ask questions about what is and what isn't appropriate,
Yeah.
because uh, Mac and I started playing in the Stone Age, and just having friends who are willing to play games with you was exceptional.
Yeah.
Um, Being comfortable asking big questions like, "Hey, are you okay with this kind of thing or that kind of thing?" Wasn't necessarily something we did, and it's because we are stupid cavemen. So
Yeah.
don't be like us.
Well, that does bring up a really great point on if you're the new player at a table, ask the veteran players what's going on. Ask them for
Hmm.
help. Hey, I don't think I built my character quite right. I don't think I've calculated my hit points properly. I don't think I did this. I don't think I did that. Or can you help me with this? They should be willing to help you do this.
At most tables, the veteran players are going to be talking to each other about this anyway,
Yeah.
because maybe it's the first time they're playing the system, or maybe they haven't played the system in 6 or 8 months or
Mhm.
whatever, and they're not sure they got all the details right in their heads.
Yeah. Brilliant piece of advice there from Josh again. Don't be afraid to be unoptimized. Do not min max. Uh, at that point, go play a video game. Like we're here to build and play roles of something else, something well-rounded, something that goes out and has a living life. If you make a bad character, you'll either enjoy it or learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But characters without flaws are also characters without good role playing hooks.
Exactly. Uh, and then that sort of gets into character building and creation, where a lot of people like doing the points buy because you can make your character exactly what you want it to be. I like to go on the other side, 3d6 roll in order. You get no rerolls. That's that's my way to do it. But you
Uh,
can also have a character with intelligence 3 at that point. So,
yeah. I'm fine with that as long as I get to use my dice to roll.
oh, yeah, you're gonna look at my D3s on my D6s and just hope that you don't notice.
Like my obviously weighted D6s, yeah.
Yeah, they're
They'll
eggs.
totally fool you.
Yeah. So I like having built-in flaws on characters. One of the things that I personally don't like, and I know a lot of people do, so I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. I don't like multi-classing because I like having I like having weaknesses as a character. I like having things I can't do as a character.
So I want to be clear, like there's old school D&D multi-classing, which is
Mm-hmm.
different and weird and kind of a strange animal.
Yep.
And then there's modern multi-classing, the D&D 3 and forward kind of multi-classing where you're essentially addressing gaps in the character capability.
Yeah, and I don't like that. I'd much rather have a character that can't do everything, that
Right.
has flaws, that needs the team around them, because this is not a solo adventure. This is not me playing Skyrim by myself. This is me sitting around a table with 5, 6, 7 other people, and we all need to be vital in everybody else's stories. As Josh says, you still only get one action. And if you can do everything, then maybe you're taking away something from somebody else that wanted to do that also. Like, hey,
Unless you're a fighter, then you
yeah,
have action surge.
fighter goes and does things. Who cares? Fighter go and fight. But if I'm the wizard and I start taking classes in rogue, so that then I can also pick doors and pick locks, and all of a sudden I'm doing all the things behind the scenes while everyone else is out there dealing with the big bad, and they come back and there's nothing there for them to loot. Like, why am I doing that? Or they don't get to try to test the puzzle on the door, or they don't get to play this other thing too. There's a lot of other things that are going on the table besides just me and what I want my characters to do.
One other thing that I wish I knew was okay when I first started playing was it is 100% okay to play into whatever obvious trap your GM is trying to run you into.
Oh yeah, and that's sort of plays into the whole. We'll have to make a whole episode on how GMs can make a decent trap, because that's a thing.
Hmm.
But a GM who doesn't tell you there's a trap there is the wrong GM.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be there's a trap right here, but you have to have seen the trap that sprung and killed the other adventurer in front of you, or the skeleton that's stuck to a half collapsed back in wall or something.
So this is one of those things that like when we first started playing this game, our introduction to how do you introduce a trap was literally we watched Indiana Jones last weekend, and Indiana Jones foreshadows traps by presenting already triggered traps. And it is now actually how it is recommended that you as a GM handle introducing traps to player characters. You know, they get to see one of the traps already triggered, so they kind of understand the traps are there and what it looks like when the trap does work, and
Yeah.
then hopefully they try to avoid them.
Well, I like the. I've run a couple different games where there'll be a traditional trap, and usually I'll do it one of two ways. I'll either have the trap that has already sprung and didn't reset properly, or the victim is still very clearly there. Whatever it is, the trap went off, and you can see, oh, that didn't go right. There's a problem here. Let's stay on alert for traps. Or I'll have and for anybody who's played at my tables, cover your ears or mute the mic. Uh, the first trap you're going to encounter is unavoidable. It'll happen. It's a non-lethal trap, uh, but it gets you thinking that there are traps there. It'll be something like you fall 15 feet. That's not
Oh
bad.
yeah,
And there'll
yeah.
be a healing potion somewhere around in that room or the next one that can fix your leg.
Yep.
No problems there, but it teaches the lesson of there are traps here. You need to pay attention to these.
So I guess the other thing that I wish I had known when I first started playing is 100% okay to rely and lean heavily on the materials provided in the books. They're not there to fool you unless it's written by Monty Cook. That's a whole different issue. They're not there to fool
Uh,
you. They are trying to help you build an interesting character, to build a good character, to build a character that's going to be fun to play.
yeah, you have a lot of things there. On the other hand, know what your limits are, where your hard and fast lines of as a player, I'm not supposed to read past this. One of the things that I kind of wish I was told before was exactly that: was dig into it. You can read all of the stuff in this book, uh, the player's handbook for fifth edition D&D, and pretty much every edition of D&D after AD&D, I believe, uh, had a separate player's handbook and a dungeon master's handbook. You can read the entire player's handbook. Go for it.
And a
Read it.
a monster manual, which is super tempting to read as a player, but I guarantee you're not going to get nearly as much out of it as if you let your DM do the reading in that book, and then brings entertaining monsters to the table.
Yeah, it's don't spoil it for yourself. You know, don't rob yourself of the opportunity to see a gelatinous cube for the first time in the wild. Don't take that away from you, because that's a really cool thing to do. Uh, that's why I'm so happy about some of the things. I believe is the starter set's Lost Mines of Phandelver, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there's a tower in the castle that you encounter there that I'm so happy it's in there because it introduces my favorite species of monster in the first module. Like that's amazing. If you've never played the game before, you get introduced out of the gate to the greatest monsters out there, uh, and
It
yeah,
it really is well, it's the best starter set for any D&D game. And it really is one of the best adventure modules ever written. I am super partial to Eyes of the Stone Thief. And I will tell you right now, there are two parts of that I have never read because I have never had to run a group through those two parts. And I'm hoping someday I will get to play through those parts as a player and not know what's coming.
yeah, that's kind of a weird line that I have to walk as a GM and a player. Is I would love to play Curse of Strahd,
Hmm.
but I also kind of want to run Curse of Strahd.
Hmm.
But if I'm going to run it, I have to look into it a little bit and read it, and so it's like, how do I want to make sure this is going to be a equitable experience for me or for someone else?
Things that we wish we knew when we were new players is it is okay not to read everything. It is okay.
Yeah,
You do not need to be the expert. That is what your GM is there to do.
absolutely. So finally, because we are in the golden age of Dungeons and Dragons right now, and this is the best time to be starting this hobby in ever.
Hmm. Well, I mean, unless you were playing with Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson.
Even then, I think that this is still a better time to overall be playing in the hobby, even
Oh
if
yeah,
you could get a
probably.
spot
Yeah.
at Gygax's table, just because it's cool now. Like this is a shocking thing that I'm still kind of reeling my head about. Like Vin Diesel has a D&D campaign. Joe
Oh no.
Manganiello has a D&D campaign. Vin Diesel has a D&D character that's tattooed on him.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
also the character in The Last Witch Hunter. So just watch that, and Vin Diesel's power fantasy. Uh,
It's not though. That's the weirdest part about it.
no,
Is
not
it's
at
not a
all.
pa- it's a well-developed, flawed character. It's very interesting to see it in movie form because it doesn't work as a movie
No, not
hero.
at all. It's. Oh, I wish it was such a good movie, but it's not. Uh, you can even play female characters now. Yeah. So there's a lot of great things that are going on there. The game itself doesn't have a lot of the nuts and bolts it did at some point. Doesn't have the lethality. Doesn't have sort of the "I got you" moments. Those can still be there, but what it does do is it has lowered the bar for entry to an astounding degree. If you want to play, if you want to play something, that is the most grognardy game ever, we can still get that for you. But get there, as a gateway drug into this fantastic hobby, fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons is perfect for that.
I mean,
And
I can get you a copy of Zweihander. I don't know anyone that's gonna run it for you.
I
That's
I
there.
could run Zweihander. I don't
I
I don't want to run Zweihander.
Yeah, no. Again, I know you're. not the grognardiest person I know, but one of, and I know that you and I have talked about Zweihander before, and how interesting it would be to play that, but just literally nobody wants to run it. It's the Shadowrun paradox.
Yeah. So Josh and Prim are over there talking about the ability to play female characters. Yeah, fifth edition is fantastic because female characters don't have different stats.
Yeah,
They're,
the old, what is it, -4 to strength?
mhm.
Yeah,
But as she points out, you get the +1 to charisma. So hey, that's a thing, right? It balances.
sure.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, the early editions of D&D are not for the faint of hearted. Uh,
They are games designed by like real medieval combat nerds for real medieval combat nerds.
Not even. Gygax didn't know what he was talking about that stuff, which is annoys me to
Yeah,
some ends. But that's
I,
again, we'll talk about things that are wrong with D&D in a different episode.
for a guy who was not a graduate level professor of medieval combat in a pre-internet era, he knew quite a bit.
I'm touching a cat. It's great. Uh, but yeah, so
Oh yeah, no. Josh is 100% right. Is old original D&D and really old RPG games in general are a product of their time. They they don't necessarily age badly, um, because they're not really aging. The games themselves have already moved on.
yeah, it's just how things go. But I still haven't gotten to my zinger of why this is one of the greatest times ever. One of the things that you have YouTube, you have the Games Tavern Network, you have Critical Role, you have all of the big names out there that are showing you how to play games.
The shows that Wizards of the Coast is putting on Twitch right now are absolutely fantastic, and
Yeah,
you should be watching them if you're totally into D&D. I'm
there's
telling
a
you right
reason
now.
why I have not, beyond like, ooh, we could do this, entertained an idea of let's do a How to Play Dungeons and Dragons episode, because everybody else out there is doing it better than we can do.
Hmm.
Uh, it's already done. It's already been done great. The books are available digitally. Thanks, Josh. There's so many great apps, so many great resources at your fingertips. The internet's amazing. It's what I wish someone had told me 15, 16 years ago when I was getting started was, A, you're not always going to have to be in your basement doing this. It's going to be cool. You can do it. Uh, you can do it outside. You can do it on the internet. You can do it on TV. Gaming is gonna be welcoming. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a thing that you can do with people, and people be like, "Oh, that's awesome." I don't have to tell my coworkers when I leave, like, "Oh, I'm gonna just go hang out with my friends." It's like, no, hey, I'm gonna go play Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, cool. Have a good time. I'm not sure why it's mainstream now. I'm not sure how it became not weird. I want to credit the Lord of the Rings movies.
I'm gonna tell you my theory on the continuum of nerdery.
Mm-hmm.
There was a period in the early 2000s when World of Warcraft first hit and it was super popular, where playing Warcraft stopped being a nerd thing and became a common thing. And that hierarchy of nerddom, where World of Warcraft players were not as nerdy as people who played D&D, is one of those things that like you can't stay at the top of the mountain.
Yeah,
You just can't. And as comfortable as people are with the idea that people play World of Warcraft or EverQuest or any of the games, Asheron's Call or
right.
Ultima Online, um, people became comfortable with that and it stopped being an issue. And then the next nerdiest thing moved up, and 4 years ago that was D&D, when D&D Next was being pushed, and then they finally released D&D Fifth Edition. And then D&D stopped being a weird nerd thing, and it became something that people went, yeah, people do this.
Yeah, it's socially acceptable now to walk around with, with an owlbear backpack. Oh, it's not.
I
No, it's I. That was a rough weekend in Philly.
I,
Uh,
I mean, if you're in the right place, yes, 100% you can get away with that. I would not try and walk through Baltimore with it, but that's just me.
yeah, yeah, it's not the greatest. Uh, but yeah, so I think that's yes, Albers. Yes, Albers. Uh, ah, gotcha. So yeah, that's. I think that's pretty much. Sorry, I was trying to look at the chat and it looks like Rob actually knows what he's doing with that. So
Sorry, yeah, no.
I don't do. I
Auto
don't.
moderator shenanigans. Yeah, I took care of it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I don't. I don't do tech stuff like this. I managed my high school robotics team. I didn't actually twist wrenches or write code. Uh, Middle managers for life. So yeah, I think that that's pretty much at the bottom. Ends out our script of things I was thinking about talking about. Do you have anything else there, Rob?
No, I think we've really dredged this one pretty deep.
How about Josh? Is there anything else you want to be adding in?
Yeah, Josh, who will hopefully sit in the hot seat one of these weeks.
We might be able to get like a third picture in picture here.
Yeah,
Embrace a character and play it to its fullest. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
yep.
And probably the single biggest thing that we can tell you, we told you last time, we're going to tell you next time also. These are our opinions. There's no right way to play these games. This is what we're doing are tips and tricks that we think work well for us, that how I recommend going forward and doing this. But they're all just sort of that. They're advice. They're not the rules on how to make this work. If you and your group can make these things work, if you have a great way for integrating new players, let us know because we want to know that. Uh, but if you don't, if you don't let us know, at least know that that's great that you have that one working. If you don't have if your things are going great, everything's going happy at your tables, everyone's walking away loving what you're doing, don't listen to us. We're two nerds sitting in our living rooms. Uh, keep doing you, having a good one. Thank you so much, Mr. Smithwick, for the 100 bits. Two thumbs. There we go. Two thumbs up.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I will say this: if you are having fun, all of our advice is not going to help you. If
Yep,
you're already having fun, you have succeeded. That's the whole point of these games.
they're games. Feel like checking out some of the stuff that we're that feel like taking some of our advice, play with it. Maybe it'll fit in your group, maybe it won't. But what we want to do is one of the big goals that I have when I'm pushing this program here is getting people to make sure they don't get stuck in ruts. Get people engaged, get people doing things, and being welcoming to the new players because it was rough. Being a new player in D&D, being a new player, yeah, it was D&D when I was jumping in on it. It was a rough time 15 years ago to jump in, and it's wonderful now, and I really want to try and push that forward. That's so if you are running games, try and chip in for the new players, try and get them in, because we didn't have that, and it's fantastic that it's there now.
I will tell you, as someone who's been GMing for over 20 years, coming up on 25 years, I'm
You're
really
so old.
old now. Yeah, so old. One of the most rewarding things you can do is introduce a new player to these games and to nurture them through the learning process and to get them involved and excited. And once they're moving on their own, that's a really fulfilling feeling.
Yeah, I couldn't. I think it's a fantastic spot to end there. So unless there's anything else coming out from the chat there, I want to thank you all for coming and joining us on this hour and 45-minute happy hour.
Hmm.
Uh, Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mac,
I'm Rob.
and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Is the Velkin Weave right? 7
Yeah,
p.m.
tomorrow is the Velkin Weave. Please tune in. They're a great group of adventurers, I suppose.
Yeah, my power cut right at the end of the last one, so I kind of missed it. Uh, but I am very interested to see how they're gonna progress with that story. It's gonna be solid. So we'll see you guys tomorrow at the Velkin Weave, and otherwise have yourselves a good evening.
Yeah,
Bye.
please join us in Discord.